Good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So you know what day it is? It's Friday. Listen, it's Royalty Talk Show today. That's what we do on a Friday. You get your cup of tea and you get me, and we sit down and we chat about everything pertaining to women in regards to their faith, their finances, their fulfillment in life. Come on now. Their family, everything that encompasses women. That's what we do on a Friday at 12 o'clock. We get our lunch, we get our cup of tea, and we get me. Yes. So come on into the Royal Courts. You know what it is. Invite a friend, bring them, drag them into the Royal Courts so we could talk today. Today, it's going to be serious. It's going to be heavy, but it's going to be so fulfilling. We have the pleasure of having a guest speaker today, and she's going to talk to us about what it is and how we could overcome, loss, or how we could go through the stages to overcome the fact that we are being hurt with the fact that we've lost a loved one. But before all of that, I want to welcome you into the Royal Courts. Baby girl, this week has been, busy. And I bet it's been busy for you too. So grab a friend, let them know that Royalty Talk show is right now airing, and we are about to dive into all the yumminess, okay? So I will be right back.
Get ready for the Royalty Talk Show with host Portia Basham, the podcast designed for women who are looking to be inspired, motivated, and encouraged. Whether you're just starting out in your career or raising a family, the Royalty Talk Show has something for you. This is your opportunity for empowerment and affirmation. Get blessed with amazing stories from women of all walks of life who want to share their truths and victories and impact the lives of women everywhere. This is your cordial invitation to join us as we sip tea, chat, and empower each other on the Royalty Talk Show and podcast with your host, Portia Basham.
Well, good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon. And I am going to say welcome. Welcome to the Royalty Talk Show. This is where we teach, empower, and affirm you to go ahead and do what thus says God in this season of your life. And this podcast is all about discussing everything that encompasses us women, our family, our faith, our finances, our friendship, and the fulfillment of life. So go ahead, invite somebody, tag them, drag them into the Royal Courts, and let's get started. For those who do not know who I am, I'm your host, Lady Portia Basham. I am your brand strategist. I am your best-selling co-author. I am an international speaker. I am the host of the best podcast in the world, the Royalty Talk Show. I'm the minister of the gospel, the founder of She Ministries. And for those who do not know who we are and what this ministry entails, She Ministries is that online community that helps leading ladies as yourself in society balance life and business whilst healing from those secret struggles of life. But the one thing I enjoy doing the most, the thing that I believe I'm mandated to do, is to help ladypreneurs as yourself unleash your inner boss qualities, create that life you've always desired, and to help you transform your business and your life for better according to biblical principles. So today we have the honor, the pleasure to have our guest speaker, Princess Millens. And let me tell you, it was a shocker when she told me her name was Princess. I was like, okay, you go by Princess. Okay, great. So what's your name? And she go, no, it's Princess. So we got royalty. We got royalty up in here today. So I am super excited to bring her on because we're going to talk about a topic twofold. I always go twofold. It is how to begin the process of emotional healing after loss, and the 3 steps we could take towards that emotional healing. So I'm super, super excited to bring her up. So she is going to come and join us right now. Welcome. Listen, we got to bow to you because you're Princess, I was besides myself when I go, okay, so.
Oh, wow.
Girl, I understand.
Yes.
We all call ourselves queens and princesses around here. So what's
Yes.
No. It is Princess. So listen, your mama, you have to tell your mama that
Yes.
a beautiful name. Every girl in
Thank
the world,
you.
mommy gave them the name Princess. So you did
Yes.
well. So welcome and tell us about yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do. And then we want to know a fun fact.
A
Go
fun
ahead.
fact. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Well, good morning, everybody. I just want to first thank you, Portia, for inviting me today to join you in this conversation and this great podcast that you have. And I've just been so excited and just honored to be here to join in on the conversation to add value to this platform and your leading ladies today. So I am Princess Millens. Yes, my name is Princess. And I am the founder and CEO of Blessed and Beautiful International. And I offer coaching and products and services that help women who struggle with grief and burnout so that they can design a plan. You know, we have to design a plan to get our joy back and to embrace our purpose. So that's the whole point. And I am the mother of 3 wonderful children. I'm an empowerment speaker. I'm a certified joy restoration coach and a life coach. I'm a best-selling author. I'm an educator. I've taught in the public education for 20 years. I'm a minister of the gospel. And since your podcast is number 1, I am the host of Restore My Soul podcast. Amen. And so I'm a minister of the gospel, but I have a passionate desire to help build better families and communities. So everything, I know I wear many hats as you do, but everything I do centers around that, just building better families and communities. And that is my passion. So in a nutshell, that's who I am. And I don't know a fun fact about me. Well, I guess a fun fact about me that I guess I can celebrate a few firsts in my family. I was the first college graduate in my family. I was the first homeowner in my family. Okay.
Come on.
I broke a couple of curses there, or a couple of records there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They can't write the story without saying your name in the middle of it. That's for sure.
That's right.
Listen.
Absolutely.
I remembered when I took part in a pageant in 2003. So if I'm 25 now, so that I must have been 16. Let's just leave that there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that for me that I always said is whenever they are going to write the story of that organization, they cannot write the story without mentioning my name.
Absolutely.
Whenever you're going to write the story of the hotel I represented, they can't write the story without mentioning my name. It's like you have to understand when we take our steps in life, there are certain places we leave our mark and they can't write the story. History cannot be told without saying it. So that right there on the first of the house and the college attendance and everything else, your family can't write the story.
They can't.
Without stopping there and mentioning your name.
Absolutely.
So we're super excited to have you here. And I know our topic is heavy and very near and dear to you. And it's a lot to talk about. I shouldn't even say talk about, but to relieve the story every time you speak about it, really. Your loss. But the one thing that I'm very honored to say now is the fact that you have figured out a way to overcome the fact of staying in that, what they call it, Lola bar. Because we could go through a lot of trauma, and the difference between the person on the mountaintop and the person in the valley is how you handle what you go through in the valley.
Absolutely.
Some people go through things in the valley and they stay there. They stay there. The woe is me, they stay there. And then there are others that are determined to see what's on the other side of the mountain. So we would love to hear about your story. Please let us in on your story.
Well, yes, this is a topic that a lot of times we shy away from, but it's very, very necessary in our communities that we continue to have the conversation about grief because it happens to everybody.
Yes.
Everybody is will have or have had a place in their life where they've had to come onto some pain or some hurt in their life, and they're sitting there trying to figure out how do I overcome that, right? And I know there's been many, many, many things in my life that I had to endure and struggle in this area of grief and loss, as many of you have. But grief is not only defined by the death of our loved one. I want to make that clear up front because any loss that brings pain and hurt to our lives is it brings that grief. You know, I lost my mother to death, right? And all of my grandparents. And I've been through some other painful things. I went through a painful divorce. I even had health issues that brought on grief. So our definition and our connotation of what grief is, it has to be broadened because sometimes our perspective is just that it applies to when someone dies, right? So, but I can say that my most recent and my most difficult and most painful struggle in this area of grief has to do with my son. I lost my son through death and just trying to navigate through his loss. And my only son, Anthony, and he was my only son. He was 20 years old when he passed away, and he served in the military and absolutely loved his job, absolutely loved what he was doing.
Oh,
And like any other young person, right, he had big hopes and dreams about what he wanted for his future. And, you know, he was just full of life to all that knew him. But he passed away unexpectedly. And I must admit, and you can only imagine that it has been the most challenging thing that I've ever had to experience
yeah.
in my life. You know, a lot of times we equate that to burying our parents, but burying a
Mhm.
child
Oh,
is something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, right?
yes,
But he
yes,
passed away in October of 2018. So on Monday, on the 24th, this past Monday, was 4 years that we honored the loss of him, and he transitioned to glory. And then, but again, most could only imagine the pain that we have endured as a family and
yes,
even as a mother. But this is what I realized is that at the end of the day, it's a choice. It's all a choice of how we're going to live. And
yes,
so that's one of the most important lessons that I've learned through all of this, that it's a choice. It's a choice that if I was just going to wallow in my sorrow and, because you feel like you just want to bury yourself, you want to isolate yourself, and sometimes you don't even want to continue to live yourself, right? But I had to make a choice. Was I going to continue to stay stuck in my grief, or was I going to live in a way that I could honor his memory? And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to use the experience and use the thing that happened to me not as a sorrowful place in my life, which it is, but not as a sorrow, but use it in my testimony to be able to help other women who have gone through the same thing, or the ones to come that will go through the same thing, that let them know that they can overcome too, that they can pull themselves out of this grief, and they can begin to get back to joy and walk in their purpose. It's all a choice. And that's one of the most lessons that I've learned through all of it. It's all a choice. And, the pain of grief, we don't choose, but our response, it's our response. And it's certainly within the confounds of our control. And one of the most important things to ask ourselves is, what are we going to do with that pain?
yes,
No one's choice will be the same, but we find some commonalities, I think, maybe in two things. Either you're going to stay and be overtaken, right, in your pain, or you're going to face it and get all of the resources and all of the help that you need
Yes.
to get through it. And I chose the latter because if I choose now to forfeit my life, right? Because
Yes.
I thought about it. Okay, we're not going to talk about the suicidal thoughts,
Listen.
but if I chose to now forfeit my life because of my pain,
Yes.
then my life is now in vain.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and our testimony and our story is not for us. It's for the people that we meet, and we have the opportunity to minister to them so that they have the opportunity to be healed as well. And
Yes.
then I always look for the blessing in the situation. I know it might sound strange to some people, but I always look for the blessing of a situation, a tragedy, or anything, even in grief. And it's tough, but I learned how to do it. And everybody's circumstance and situation is not the same, right?
Listen. Mhm.
But I had to begin to thank God for certain things. You know, I had to look at the blessing of even being able to raise my son
Yes.
into early adulthood. You
Mm.
know, even though he was young, I had to thank God that he was not stillborn. You
Come
know how many
on.
people, don't even have a day. There are
Yes.
many mothers out here that don't even get a chance to spend one day with their child. And God gave me 20 years. And so in that, even though, I didn't want to let him go, I'm just so thankful for that. So I look for
Yes.
the blessing in everything. And you can too, even in tragedy.
My question for you would be, I know we always talk about um, we trust God, we go through, we look on the bright side.
Mhm.
Even if, when I remembered I was doing writing about my experience raising my son on the spectrum. And one of the things my editor said to me was, you have to find a way to express how what you were thinking at the time it happened. Yes, we know you've overcome it, but what was your emotion at the beginning stages? Because let me tell you, we go through, and sometimes we say how great it is on the other side, but somebody is still in that first room,
Yeah.
where they're still trying to hold on to the pillow of that bed where the son or the child was. How
Yeah.
do so just tell us in your own words your experience coming home to a house knowing that he was no longer there.
Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow. But it took me a while to even grasp the fact or even believe that he was really gone. So I think, it's all different for all of us, but my first emotion was sadness, and then it began to be, I don't believe this is true.
Mhm.
Because like I said, my son was in the military, right? He was stationed in Fort Bliss in Texas. And
Mhm.
so he was over there. And so before he even got home, and it's just like the movies. You know how the movies depict the military officers coming to your door to deliver that movie.
Jesus,
It's,
I won't open the door.
listen, it's just like that. Okay.
Ooh,
And so I did not believe it, right? Because I was praying that it was not true. But for about almost 2 weeks, I didn't see him because he was still over there. They did an autopsy and all of that. They had to, in the military, everything is an order, right? So they had
yes,
to write orders for him to be released back home to me. So for almost 2 weeks, you're telling me my son has passed away. I know he's not answering his phone because I still tried to call him, right? Maybe this is a mistake, and maybe this is some kind of misidentification. I did
yes.
everything to rationalize in my
Mhm,
head, right?
mhm, mhm.
And so but it took me a while to even to even come out of that place of denial, because I kept saying to myself, how can I come into agreement with someone or something that I have not even seen? I haven't seen his body. I haven't seen his face, And so that first place is hard because it can be anything to anyone. You are in grief, you're sad, you're in denial at the same time. You are you're in a roller coaster. You're in a roller coaster. You don't even have sometimes the capacity to tell people what you need. You're not there. You have a lot of people around you during that time. People come, but before the funeral, they coming by, they have the food, they bring the chicken wings, amen.
And what happens after all of that? What happens after all of that? You by yourself.
Yes. And so after the funeral, you have your faithful few, you have your family there. But after it is all said and done, it's still just you having to deal with what has taken place. And so we have to, get into a place of, first of all, we have to come out of that denial stage. I think some of us, we kind of stay in that denial stage. But one of the first things that you can do at any point, and this is not my 3 points, but what I had to do first is acknowledge it. I had to acknowledge that he was gone, and I had to acknowledge that I was in pain. And let me show you what that looks like. Yeah, we lose our loved ones. We have the funeral and everything, right? But guess what? The world keeps going. We go back to work, right? Yes. We preach on Sunday, right? We still try to take care of our families, especially if we have little children. If we're married, we're still trying to be there for our husbands.
Yes.
We still get into that mode of work. And it's
on autopilot, right? It's just an autopilot.
You're autopilot. You're autopilot because sometimes that's what we think that is expected of us. Yes. And the second thing is we don't want people to see, right? I know it's crazy. We don't want people to see how hurt we are by this situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. Because you don't want them to start to come and bring the, woe is me. I'm so sorry. That. And I remember one of my, in fact, 2 of my friends lost their husbands very young. And it was, I say young, it was in the early stages of the marriage. Like maybe one was 1 year. The other one was like maybe 3 years into it. And they adored the husbands. So to lose the husbands, so suddenly, it took them a hot minute, and I remember one day one of them wrote on Facebook and said, "Don't come and tell me, what I'm going through. You don't know what I'm going through. Don't tell me.
Yeah.
What I'm going through." Yeah. That is so true.
It is.
So I have a few questions for you. What are some of the signs that someone is not coping well after the loss? And then whilst you're answering that, can emotional healing ever be fully completed after we've lost a loved one?
Okay. Well, what it looks like is some of what I just described. We go back to autopilot, we go back to life, we go back to work. Even though we may not feel like it, we may not be in a place even emotionally or mentally to go right back to what we have been doing. I know I did the same thing. Even when my mom passed away, even when my son passed away, I actually went back to work because it was like, that's all I know. I know if I stay home, I rationalize. If I stay at home, then I'm just going to wallow. It's not going to end
Yes.
well if I just stay at home. So maybe by chance, if I stay busy, right? If I stay busy, I can busy my way out of grief. You gonna catch
Ooh,
that?
that's a good one. That's a good one.
I can
That's a good
busy my
one.
way out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we busy our way out, then we're not facing the fact that what's really going on inside. And
Yes.
one day it's going to come out. So our charge is to make sure that we deal with it effectively, even though we might be going back to work and things like that. We have a smile on our faces. We
Yes.
doing stuff like that, but the pain is still there, right? And so some of the signs could be that you lost your appetite. You don't want to, you're isolating yourself. Okay. That
Yes.
was a big one for me. To isolate yourself and not want to participate in the things that once
Yes.
gave you pleasure.
Pleasure. Uh-huh. Yes.
So that's a big one, and when we see our loved ones doing that, we want to, kind of check on them, because again, in the early stages, we really don't know what we want. I know that sounds crazy, but we really don't know what we need, right?
Yes.
And sometimes, the Bible says when Job lost everything that he had, that his friends came to him and they were sad as well. But they just sat with him, and they didn't say a word for 7 days. They just sat with them. And sometimes you just need people to sit with you.
To sit with you, yes. I remember one of my friends said that.
Yeah, it's not about necessarily having a whole lot to say. Just do the things, I think, or even, this is what I always tell people too. If you don't know, it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask people, what would you like for me to do for you?
Yes.
And sometimes we know and sometimes we don't know.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
So share with us the 3 steps we could implement now towards emotional healing.
Yeah, that's a big one, trying to get into emotional healing. But going back to your question, I think I left it out. Going back to your question about do we ever get out of that rotation, is that I think it's always a work in progress.
Yes.
My daughter posted a meme, a thing a couple of days ago. And it said something to the fact that we think that when we have grief, it was like a ball inside of a jar. And it was like the grief, the ball that was inside of the jar represented the grief. And we see sometimes the grief getting smaller and smaller and smaller in the same jar, right? Mm-hmm. But the new perspective on that is that the grief stays the same size. And what happens is that we, the jar, we are the ones that grow. Okay. We are the ones that overcome. We are the ones that become bigger than the grief.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's always a work in progress because, we don't forget our loved ones. We don't forget necessarily the pain of losing something, no matter if it was death or not. But it's always a work in progress. But that's why we have to go out and continue to do and work in our purpose so that it will have meaning. It will just not be sitting dormant anywhere,
Yes, I love that.
One of the most critical things I've already mentioned was about acknowledging your pain. Just acknowledge where you are. It's just like when we're bleeding. When we're bleeding, we have to do something to stop the bleeding. Mm-hmm. Where the body knows that, and it's the blood starts to clot, right? That's the response that even our bodies know that the bleeding has to stop and the blood starts to clot to form the healing process, to start the healing process. Yes. that's how grief is for us too. We have to make sure that we are in a state where we're acknowledging that we are grieving, because again, we get into that mode, we get into the routine, we get back into the routine, and we kind of sweep that grief under the rug. But again, one day it's going to come out.
Yes.
It's going to come out if we continue to suppress really what we're feeling and all of that. Okay. So I'm a big advocate for, I love to pray. I love God, but we need therapy as well. Okay.
Yes.
We need therapy. Do not discount the people and the resources that God has given us here on earth to help us through these things. Right.
Yes.
But going back to those steps to emotional healing after a loss, I think it becomes the first thing is just understanding why it's important to let go of that pain.
Ooh.
It's not necessarily doing something right now, but your understanding and your wisdom, because wisdom and knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes when loss occurs, it's chaotic, and it's so chaotic that the knowledge of the thing get pushed to the side because we're trying to deal with our emotions.
Yes.
So there's so much happens to us when we're struggling, and not only emotionally, but physically, mentally, spiritually, the list goes on, right? But just taking a look at what happens to us mentally, it all begins with the power of our thoughts. So when we have experienced some kind of deep emotional wound, our natural response is to attempt to make sense of it.
Come on.
And so our thoughts begin a cycle of questions that we might ask ourselves. Why did this happen? What did I do? How could this happen to me? Things like this, and this kind of self-talk will have us in a place where either we can support it can either support our healing if we have positive self-talk, or it can make it more difficult. And our thoughts have to begins to affect us emotionally. So everything begins with a thought, and that thought begins to affect us emotionally. And then we can lose our sense of self. We can lose our sense of self because we can't even recognize who we were before this thing happened. And we begin to, we're on this emotional roller coaster, if you will, right? That we can't seem to get out of. And this is why our understanding, that's the first thing, our understanding of what is happening, our acknowledgement of what is happening to us is key, because it allows us not to only recognize what it is, but it even gives us wisdom to know how to articulate to anyone else what we need.
Yes.
So when you're in a place of grief, oftentimes you don't know what you need. Just like I said, all you know is that you're hurt.
There's an emptiness. That's all
it's
you
an
know.
Emptiness. So that's the first thing, understanding where you are and acknowledging that. All right. The second one is going to free somebody. Amen. It's forgiveness. The second thing really is forgiveness. And this may be a shock to many people, but yeah, forgiveness is necessary. Remember, I'm going back to my initial definition of grief, that it's not only categorized with the loss, death of a person. It can be a divorce. It can be a loss of, a job, or loss of relationships, things like that, right? And so you might say, forgive who? And for what? Well, that's a good question, and it's dependent on the situation. But in my case, I had to forgive myself. I know that sounds strange, to forgive yourself for somebody else dying, but that's not what it was. It was forgiving myself for all of the things that I had felt guilty about with my mom and even with my son.
Mm-hmm.
I had to forgive myself for all the turbulent times that I had with my mom before she passed away, and not spending time with her like I wanted to or like I should have, or even forgiving myself for not going to see my son. I promised my son so much. I'm coming to see you. He came to see me more than I went out there to see him. And so I had to even forgive myself for not going to see, going to visit my son after I promised it when he moved to his base in Texas. And all of the things that I felt guilty about, I had to forgive myself, which is a big part of letting go, which is my first step, right? Is a big part of letting go. Forgiveness is freedom. That's what it is. It's freedom from having what happened to us always on our mind. It's the freedom from anger. It's the freedom from fear. And any forgiveness releases the power that we have to move into the future and not keep us stuck in the past. We will be able to think more clearly and more purposely and move into the future with confidence. And what we want is joy. That's what we want.
So you forgive yourself and take away the hurt and replace it with joy.
Yeah.
You got to replace it with something, because if not, something else is going to take that space up. You got to replace it with joy. Replace it with peace. That's a big part. The big part is to forgive yourself. Especially, I had this teacher, and we would talk every now and then. And I met her when I was in college. And I remember I hadn't spoken to her for a while. And when I got her and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And da-da-da-da-da. I said, "You must be busy working. That's why I'm not hearing you." And she goes, "No, I'm not feeling well." I think she had breast cancer or something.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, like that. Because I never knew her to miss anything. So I said to her, "I tell you what, Misha, I'm rushing off to go pick the boys up from school. I'm going to love you up, and I'm going to call you back."
Oh, wow.
And I remember I called back the following week. I didn't get her. Call back again, I didn't get her. I called back again, I didn't get her. In talking to my sister about something, my sister happened to say, "Oh, one of my friend's mom passed away." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your friend's mom," like that. And she goes, "Yeah." And then she showed me the friend's mom.
Oh, wow.
Who is I was besides myself.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Things that up to a dear like it keeps resonating in the fact that I told her I was going to call her right back.
Yes.
And I did not get to call her right back. And at the time I kept calling.
Yeah.
And then the daughter was trying to get hold of me because we never changed numbers. I was friends with her mom. And then when I got hold of the daughter, I didn't know what to say.
Oh, wow.
Not only was I not really friends with the daughter, it was because I promised her mom that I was going to, so it really was heavy for me.
Yeah.
And I understand when you say you have to forgive yourself for those things, the things that you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
And miss those opportunities to do it, so that is heavy. That right there is heavy. So let us know what your last point is. I'm super excited to learn what your last point of the 3 is.
Yeah, that forgiving part is very heavy. I'm telling you. But a lot of times we kind of overlook that, and that is a thing that keeps us stuck.
Yes.
But the last point, I'm going back to what I said. Number 1 was understanding that you have to let go and acknowledge it. Number 2 was forgiveness, forgiving yourself for whatever it is that's keeping you stuck in that place of pain. And then the third one is actually letting go. Number 1 is actually the understanding that this is what you have to do. Number 2 is the forgiveness part. 3 is the actual process of letting go. And this can be so hard because a lot of times we equate letting go with forgetting.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'll never sit here and forget my son, right? I will never forget my mother. I will never forget the good times that I had in my marriage, right? So a lot of times we don't want to let go because we equate letting go that now I've forgotten about them.
Yes.
And so the power you have, it has nothing to do with how powerful you feel. Even those you believe that have accomplished some of these things in their lives, they may not feel as powerful as you may, but you feel power in letting go,
Yes.
because when you have control over that part of your life, when you have control over your thoughts, and when you have control over your emotions and how you respond to life, and when you have control even over your emotions and your thoughts, because everything controls something else.
Yes.
Your thoughts control your emotions. Your emotion can control your thoughts as well, and your response to the difficulties that you have in life. So when you control the way that you respond, the way that you think, and how your emotions play out, you'll be able to keep the situation from becoming worse.
Yes.
And then you can be on your way to emotional healing, and then you have to realize, even in the letting go, that you are not your pain. That is not your name. Your name is not pain. And we must get out of the mindset, right, that letting go is forgetting your loved one or forgetting the wonderful times in our life. It's more about, I believe, embracing the new you.
Yes.
Embracing the new you, embracing the new life, and making a conscious decision to live better.
I like that. As you're talking, what came to mind? And I'm telling you, you know what just came to mind? How Naomi felt.
Oh.
When she lost the husband and two boys. I'm sitting there and I am like, Naomi.
I'm going to drink my tea on that.
Listen, Naomi, now I understand why Naomi said, don't call me Naomi.
Don't call me. Yeah.
Because this woman was heavy with her
Lord.
grief. She was heavy with her grief. Okay. And only those who have walked that path could understand when Naomi said, listen, don't come running to me in the gates and tell me it was nice to see you, because I came back empty. What I left through those doors with, I'm not coming back with it. So please don't ask me about my husband.
Don't ask me. Yes.
Children. Don't ask me how I'm feeling. I don't want to see you. In fact, don't even call me Naomi. If I changed my name, you wouldn't even remember what my name was to call me. So don't even bother.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you. And all that came to my spirit was, now you know how.
Now you know. Yeah.
I was like, ooh, that one right there could preach a sermon all by itself. That right there could preach by listen.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot. And even when you lose a relationship.
Oh,
a boyfriend.
Yes.
A best friend.
Yeah.
You want to curl up in a corner and not even talk to anybody.
Absolutely.
Anything that is taken away from you.
Yes.
Cherished.
Yes.
That you spend time with. Anything. Listen.
Anything.
That you spend time with, you cherished to you. You loved it. It was yours. A dog. A dog. If a dog from your household pass away, you're ready to just faint.
Absolutely.
My first pet, I didn't know. Listen, this dog was at my house. This dog and I had an understanding. You stay over there, I stay over here, we good. It wasn't like as if, you would hear me talk about Shelby. That was my first dog. Shelby, I complained about Shelby from now till yesterday. Shelby, you do this. Shelby that, Shelby this. But one day, I called my husband and I said,
Yeah.
Shelby doesn't look right. And
Uh,
you know what he said to me right there on the spot? Babes, brace yourself. I think Shelby's going. I'm like, what you talking about? But really and truly, she was like what, 12 or 13 or something like that. So she was aged.
okay.
To not bring her to the vet, to tell me that just so on the phone.
Yeah.
And then he came home and he says to me, babe, say your goodbyes. I said, listen, you bring this dog to the vet and you bring my dog back. Don't make me come get you.
Yeah.
And this man brought the dog to the vet and came home without the dog
Yeah.
because he said the dog got a stroke and then a stroke
Oh.
and then a stroke. And I said, but she walked out. And let me tell you,
Yeah. Yeah.
this dog collapsed. That's how I ended up getting my husband to come get her.
Oh,
When
wow.
my husband whispered in her ears, Shelby, baby girl, you very heavy. Daddy can't pick you up. Daddy
Mhm.
needs you to walk to the truck. And this was Shelby. She pulled all her energy together and walked to the truck. And my husband said by the time she got to the truck, when he got to the vet, he had to find a way to pull her because that was it.
Yeah.
And I felt to me that I never got to say goodbye.
Yes.
I was never one to be
That's
attached
it.
to the dog. So
Yeah.
the way it hit me, I was surprised it hit me that way because I was not,
Yeah.
so you imagine the pet
Yes.
from the
It's
Caribbean. We don't get
real.
attached. We don't get
Yes.
attached to our pets,
Yeah.
But imagine the pet. So far as the person or that job or whatever that you put your physical energy and your personal time into, it is, listen, people
Yeah.
like you said, people attest
I'm
loss to
telling you.
your
Yeah.
husband, your wife, your children, but loss really is
Loss is loss. Yeah.
loss.
Yes,
You
it is.
know, I mean, it carries that heavy weight in the heart, no matter what. So
Yeah.
I'm so honored that you got the opportunity to share with us your story because I know it
Absolutely.
blesses somebody.
Yeah.
Listen, if I was next to you, I would be hugging you like 10 times over because that, I don't like to talk about it because I know it is a heavy coat to carry.
It is.
Really is a heavy
It
coat to carry.
is.
And some people carry that heavy coat and you could see them way underneath it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All you have to do is understand that it is there
Yes, it
and
is.
and to find a way to, number one, like you said, forgive yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You thought
Mm.
you should have done, for the
Mhm.
things you said, I should have been there. Oprah Winfrey had this young lady on a few years ago, and I could never forget that story. Oprah Winfrey had this lady. The lady came on and she was smiling. She said, I had 3 kids. She said they were the most beautiful kids ever.
Mm.
2 teenagers, one senior, one, I guess, in was it submore or whatever it is, like middle school. And then
Yeah.
the other one was young with life and stuff, about 6 years old. She said,
Yeah.
every morning I went for a run with my best friend. Every morning I went for a run. But that morning she came back from her run. And the best friend said she was outside of the house going into her own house and heard that woman scream. And
Oh,
she
yeah.
said, scream was like a scream she never even
Mhm.
knew anybody could scream like that.
Mhm.
Because she
Mhm.
entered and her kids were all taken. If you
Oh,
know,
wow.
all gone. The ex-husband came home and dealt and just
Oh, my God.
of everybody.
Wow.
And
Mm.
she could not fathom how to move forward.
Yeah.
Now listen well. That was the first time she came to the Oprah Winfrey show. She had just gone through that like years ago. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And she was still bitter. She was
Yeah.
still upset. She was still living in the same house. The friends of the children
Jesus.
were still coming to her. They were grown by then, but she
Yeah.
was in the same. And Oprah Winfrey said to her, "You gotta find a way to get over it." She said,
Yeah.
"Have you ever lost children to tell me to get over it?"
Yeah.
The second time Oprah Winfrey had her on the show now, she had gone to therapy,
Uh-huh.
changed out the whole
I'm
house,
telling you.
put all the children's stuff
Yeah.
in storage.
Yeah.
She moved on a little bit day by day,
Yeah.
got married. Listen
Okay.
to my story well. Got married, had twins. She said, "I couldn't believe in my late 40s, I was able to."
Listen. Wow.
She had twins. And
Yeah.
now she's back on Oprah Winfrey show. And she's
Okay.
all in a different light,
Yeah.
a totally different person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
guess what? Oprah Winfrey called her to speak to another mother that lost her three children by
Mm.
by the ex-husband the same way.
Oh,
And this woman was now sitting on there, bitter as day.
yeah.
And she had to talk to her. And she said to her, "You cannot look at me and tell me if I've been there, because I could tell you I lost my three just the same. But
Yeah.
there is life after this, only if you want it.
Only if you want it.
Only if you
Absolutely.
want it." And I
Yeah.
could remember her telling the girl, "There
Yeah.
is life after this,
Yeah.
only you want it. You will get
Absolutely.
the life after this."
Yeah.
And it's amazing how we go through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We are sitting down in that valley, in
Mm-hmm.
that in darkness, in the rut of it,
Yeah.
and we cannot see how we are going to get on the other side.
Absolutely.
But it has to take somebody who's been there.
Yeah.
It has to take somebody who could tell you, "This is my scar. You see, I was
Mm-hmm.
there."
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
not coming to you with no scars and telling you, "Let's do this." I'm telling you, this is my
Yeah.
scar. And
Yeah.
if I survive it, babe,
Yes.
I'm just giving you the helping hand to tell
Yes.
you you could do it too.
Absolutely.
So I want to know, how can our audience, before I go into our conclusion,
Yeah.
to close it off, how can our audience reach you, or what service you have for them to start? Because there might be somebody watching, there might be
Mm-hmm.
somebody listening, and they are in that place,
Mm-hmm.
unbeknownst to anybody. They are
Yeah.
in that place.
Yeah.
How would they, how would they get into contact with you?
Okay, well, you can follow me on all social media, Princess Millens. And so on all social media platforms, my website is blessedandbeautifulinternational.com. But I am going to be hosting a masterclass on November the 10th. And I invite everybody to sign up for that. I think it's attached to this broadcast.
Yes, it is.
Register, and I'll be going deeper into what we've been talking about today to give a much more strategy,
Yes.
even than what I gave today. And then after that, I will be having a mentorship program, a monthly mentorship program, where I will have group coaching as well. So again, follow me on all social media platforms at Princess Millens.
Well, thank you so much. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode today. Thank you so much for joining us, Princess Millen.
Yeah.
Listen, Princess Millen, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us in the Royal Courts. We had some heavy talk in the Royal
Yes,
Courts.
we did.
We had some heavy talks in the Royal Courts, but it
Yes.
was all good.
Yes, it was.
Good for us to be able to have that talk about how to begin that process
Absolutely.
of healing after a loss. So
Yeah.
I pray this episode is beneficial to you all. As always, thanks for joining and listening to the Royalty Talk Show. We would love to hear from you, everybody. We would love to hear from you. If you're listening on a podcast, any of the podcast platforms, please go ahead and leave us a review. Let us know how this is blessing you. If you are watching us on the live show, which is on any of the social media live shows, we would like to hear from you just the same. We enjoy having you with us in the Royal Courts. And guess what? Next week, Next week we have the honor of having Dr. Gloria Monroe, CEO of Gloria Monroe Empire Inc. and Gloria Monroe Beauty Spa from Miami, Florida. She's going to be joining us as our guest speaker. I'm super excited about that. We're going to be talking about everything pertaining to faith, family, and fulfillment of women, everything that encompasses us, right? So for those business ladies, I want to chat with the business ladies. For those who want to have the opportunity to be a guest on this podcast, build your visibility opportunities. I'm giving you a few that you could take part in. If you happen to have an encouraging and empowering story and you'd like to share with our audience, I invite you to be a featured guest on the Royalty Talk Show. You could go ahead and send us an email at info, that's info, at portiabasham.com. And if you would like to also be a guest on the She Ministries TV show, listen, please go ahead and send me that email, info at Portia Basham. The opportunity for the She TV show, it's where it gets broadcast 3 days a week. You get airtime, 30 minutes each, and it is on the Daily Gospel Network. So I am super excited to open those doors to you to be a guest with us. And if you would like to work with me further in terms of branding or life coaching, go ahead, please, and visit my website, and it's portiabasham.com. Until then, oh my goodness, until then, I am Lady Portia Basham. And don't forget, you are saved, highly favored, empowered to do what God has called you to do in this season. You be blessed, and I will see you next week, right here on the Royalty Talk Show.
Thanks for tuning in to the Royalty Talk Show with your host, Portia Basham, the talk show and podcast designed for women who are looking to be inspired, motivated, and encouraged. We pray today's show was a blessing to you. Remember to tune in next time for your regular dose of encouragement and affirmation, so you can hear from other amazing women from all walks of life who share their stories and advice on everything from personal growth to living your dreams. So until next time, we look forward to seeing you to sip some tea, chat, and empower each other on the Royalty Talk